team owner of GR Motorsport and Team WD-40. This year it is Brent Gladwin. Hello, good evening, Brent.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
We're very well, thank you very much. I should point...
I was just looking at the little bit of you riding around on the mini bike. It looked like a blatter to me, but that's just an old thing. But riding a mini bike or breaking your ankle at work, pole dancing, what's that all about?
Yeah, well, I got the heels out for the Tuesday night shift at work, and I went over there. No, I was kind of hoping that maybe yourself would be watching the video and maybe offer me a job for next year, but I don't know if that's the case.
Listen, the way you were turning the left-hand turn that you missed the apex 2 or 3 times on the trot, we've got to put you really back into kiddie school.
Yeah, that'll be it. Get the stabilisers back on my bike, and maybe the right-handers were okay, but left-handers I do need to work on a wee bit. So maybe with a bit of coaching, then I'll be okay.
Anyway,
there you go.
We're not here to talk about Liam's disastrous comeback on a mini moto. Well, it wasn't that disastrous, to be honest. It was only 10 seconds off the pace. But we're here to talk about you, Brent, and your team and your season, and how things are just a catch up, really. To be honest, we just thought we'd invite you on because we've actually not heard from you in quite a while on the show. So welcome back. I think you've been on before on the Superbike show, haven't you?
No, I haven't actually. Our riders have in the past, but because my face is made for radio and not radio with pictures, it's that old story. But we've had an indifferent season. We've had one of those seasons that's started well, and is finishing well with a little bit of in between on the Superbike. As everybody knows, we've got Claudio Corti, who, he's a friend of mine now. He's done the early part of the season. He showed the form of him and the bike. Sadly, in race 2 at Silverstone, he fell and broke the ball in his shoulder, and he's been fighting with that all year. Typical of a rider. They try to cover things up, and sometimes that's not a good way. Sometimes it's better to take a little bit of time out. But he's done an all right job for us, and he's also brought to the team quite a lot of experience that's helped out with the young riders. Then we go, so that's on the Team WD-40 Superbike, and of course we're one of the few teams that has the pleasure of running 2 titled sponsors, and we have the Stealth Connect Academy, which has always been aimed at bringing the youngsters through and hopefully into the Superbike. And this year we brought Emily Latti in from Finland on the Superstock 1000, and Storm Stacey on the Superstock 600, as Tim would know both of those guys from following it. And those guys have had a great season. Emily's had a couple of big crashes that have been quite well publicised across the world. And Storm's had the last couple of 3 races have been awesome. Emily, we met him, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when he turned up at Assen on a Suzuki in the 600 class, and he had the fun and audacity when he won the race to unzip his leathers and have a Superman shirt on. And that kind of fun and laughter is part of the reason I go racing. So it's one of the reasons we contracted him for this year, and hopefully Brexit apart can move forward.
Oh, hey up, you mentioned it now.
Oh, listen, it's one of those things, because I'm a geriatric. I remember before. And I remember travelling around Europe when I raced with you.
But Brent, don't you know, everything will be a disaster though for you.
I know.
All your employees will be gone. Everything.
Oh, well, at the moment I'm scurrying because I saved a lot of euros up, thinking that I was going to be in a right good position when I came to exchange them for pound. And of course, with all the nonsense that's happening with these guys, as you know, Billy Smart's circus is struggling for clowns now because they're all applying for jobs in Parliament. But that aside, the real reason I'm mentioning Brexit is we genuinely don't know what is going to happen with work permits, whether the guys will need one. Because when we had Tommy Aquino and some of the guys, we've got Australians and Japanese have been here and New Zealanders. we have to get a visa for them to compete.
It might be the same.
Because, and it might be the same. That's correct. It might be the same. So we're just waiting to find out. Storm Stacey is from just the other side of the M6, so I don't know if we're going to need a visa for that, but I hope not. So we already know what we're going to do with Storm after this weekend.
Well, that was one of the next questions that we're coming on to be honest.
Go on then.
Well, okay.
Ask the questions, and if I can honestly answer, I will.
All right, then. What are you doing for next year? Who's staying? Who's going?
At the moment, because of the Brexit situation, we want to keep the lineup we have, but we're just waiting to see how that pans out. Luckily for me, all work permits in the UK are actually done in my hometown of Sheffield, and so we understand a little bit about how it happens, and in the past we have helped quite a few teams in securing visas and things for different riders. But at the moment it's so unclear, we don't know, but we do have a bit of luxury of time after this weekend for that. There is a couple of other young riders that we may add to the stable as well. But again, that's just future planning. I think that the main thing that at the end of this weekend, win, lose or draw, and Storm has a mathematical chance of winning the championship. But that would be at somebody else's demise, and you know we all want to race fair, really. So if luck plays into our hands and Storm carries on the form that he's had over the last few races, then maybe the championship won't go to New Zealand. But no matter what happens at the end of this weekend, it will be Storm's last ride on the 600, and we intend to move him to 1,000.
Well, he has progressed quite a lot just in the last year, especially he's been getting a lot of attention from his Donington heroics as well, hasn't he?
Well, to be fair, I mean, Storm's gone through quite a lot in life, and it's created a young man who's something a little bit different, and something a little bit different is a good thing. And the fact that at Donington Park he actually lives about an hour and a half away, and there's nobody else that I can suggest in racing. I may be proved wrong, but he lives an hour and a half away, and his mum said, right, I'm off to the track in this lovely camper. Do you want to sit in there and put your headphones on and listen to the music? Or do you want to get on your 50cc moped and ride an hour and a half to the track in this weather? But of course then you'll have to ride it an hour and a half back. And as a few people have seen on Facebook, he's that enjoying motorcycling that he chose the latter. And it was funny to do what he did, coming from last to second in that fantastic race. He put his high vis on and his haversack and jumped on a 50cc motorbike and rode the damn thing home. So it's
I think I did see.
Sorry,
I think I did see that on. It was I think on his Facebook or somewhere like that. He literally jumped on that little sort of scooter type thing, and I didn't realise that's where he was going back home. But wow. So what enthralls him, remembering that quite a few people in my team are geriatric. You know, when I was 16, I had a Fizzy, and I did 10,000 miles on the thing. I loved it, rode everywhere, and many people had those bikes, and that's why the motorcycling generation is what it is. Most of the guys, young guys in racing today, have come up through Coal-Fab and the mini bikes, etc., but they don't actually have the love of riding bikes other than the competition of riding bikes, which is still a love, obviously. And Storm has got that. He just wants to be on something with two wheels having fun. So we love that aspect of it. Well, that's entirely fair enough, and it'd be fantastic to see him move up with the team to thousands next year. A couple of questions, not just from myself, but also I'll just ask you one more, and then we'll move on to I think Liam's got some, and Tim as a couple, if you don't mind hanging on a bit longer. But your personal highlights so far from the season, Brent.
The personal highlights. The beginning of the season, the Spanish BSB test, the Spanish and Portuguese test, was fantastic with shorts, Corti. So Corti in Italian translates in English to shorts, hence the nickname. The early part of the season. He's on there shouting, hang on a minute. Where are you? Yeah, he's naked. Hi, everyone.
Oh, good. Okay.
We've got Claudio on the show now.
I think Claudio's got that sort of voice where we all like to sort of do impressions of Claudio, I think. So, he's a very...
He's just getting ready, and he's just getting ready for his training in the campus. So there we go. That's why Claudio was saying hello there.
Oh, fair enough. There you go. Spain pre-season
so
for you.
Back to the highlights. The early part of the season was really good. Picking up the shoulder injury early was a real downer for everybody, because it just sent everything backwards. Then the recovery is always good, but then Emily kind of took over the mantle, if you like, and he started to put together some great early results. And then at the end there, all three of them are starting to put the seasons back together. And as everybody knows, it's the end of the season that everybody remembers. So the highlight of the season for me was Storm's first win at Alton Park, because we, the team, the way he works with Jeff and Gary and Mark and everybody, we, the team, knew what he was capable of. But it was a little bit like Nigel Mansell, who did 105 F1 Grand Prix, won his first one at Brands Hatch European, and then won the next 9. And Storm, anybody who knows him, he's full of confidence. Once he got that result, we've then jumped forward. But that first race, anybody who's seen it, if anybody has been in our pit box, it was more like a football match, the way we were cheering and shouting.
Yep.
So that was it was pure highlight, the way that it was such a fantastic race and fight between those guys. And in a lot of ways, it was the race of the weekend, because for such young fellas with not so much experience, they had a fantastic race, and they weren't banging and barging. The passes were stunning by all 4 of them, and we came out on top. So it was just awesome.
It definitely was. It was memorable. Certainly one of the highlights of the season. I certainly remember following it as well, and your team's efforts this year as well, Brent, has been streamed via the Swinton Insurance, one of your sponsors, on their Facebook page. I know this because.
Obviously, you guys do that job for them.
Well, Motorsport Media's Dan Marr is usually mooching about and trying not to get in the way of things. But it's been fantastic to sort of be behind the scenes, so to speak, and just see.
Well, it's interesting having Dan around, because as you know, when he first joined us at the beginning of the year, he was a little bit timid, and then as the years moved along, he's in there, and it's quite funny sometimes. He's commentating to himself as we're all watching television, so it's really good, because he's become a strange part of the team. But as you mentioned, highlights, what nobody really understands who stand on the banks and watch BSB and watch it on TV is the amount of hard work and graft we do with our partners.
Yeah.
So we do the 13 BSB races, actually, because there's 12 races of the championship. And then, as Tim understands, the stock races usually do a support race at World's, whether World Superbike or something. So we actually do 13 events. But then separate to that, we do probably another 12 or 13 events for our partners. So, with Swinton, as you know, they're giving away that little Team WD-40 ZX 400. So we've been quite a few places with that, with WD-40 and Scania and Stouff. We've been to all sorts of places, from the blooming seaside to a quarry pit, the NEC. So we do an awful lot of work, as do the other teams.
Yeah.
And that's about the promotion of the sponsor and their product to enable them to give money to the teams to then go racing and entertain the crowd. So there's quite a lot of different highlights.
It is often forgotten about as well, from, like you say, the marketing side of things that teams do, and teams are often end up doing some surreal things, like you say. I mean, I won't go into half of the things, but it's interesting, and it's something I think that the fans don't necessarily take into full account when they see them when you see you guys racing on the weekend. You might have just had a full week of doing some 3 different events at 3 random places and like maybe a village event or something like that for sponsors or to raise sponsorship or something. It's I found it all interesting to keep track of, and of course you're quite prominent on your LinkedIn profile as well, just keeping the name going and the promotion and that side of things, and you're quite hot on the marketing side of things.
Well, this coming into 2020, it's our my 25th year of owning the team. So we've been racing for 25 years, and it's 20 years ago since we won the first ever European Superstock Championship with Carl Harris. We were involved with R&G Racing, or we're still involved with at the start 20 years ago. But the marketing side of things is, the fans that we have, it's really interesting, the fact that a car buying person who is also a motorcycling person, if you say to the car person, what tyres have you got on your Mercedes, he won't have a clue. If you ask him what spark plug is in his LC350, and not only will he say NGK, but he'll tell you what it is. Yeah. And yet it's the same person. So subsequently, that person is a brilliant person to advertise your products to, because our fans, the BSB fans, are so discerning. If they ride a Kawasaki to the track, they will still support a BMW rider. It's not tribal like other sports. So the marketing side, and you're right, Lester, we have done some crazy things. We've done the Lincolnshire show for the last couple of 3 years with Scania. So we put a superbike on the back of the Scania truck, and we've been to EICMA, the Italian motorcycle show. We've been down a quarry pit with Stouff. It's quite impressive, some of the things we do. And in the past, as you've seen on LinkedIn, we've brought to the paddock NVIDIA and Intel and all sorts of real great companies who value our fans. So it's important to work hard. And then, of course, when we put a team together, there's no I in team, but the rider is the focal point of a team. So he's the guy. They never wheel out the girl who makes the tea or the sandwiches at night to collect the trophy. But all of the guys in anybody's team in BSB, whether it's the real lower classes, just dad and lad, and in the same way down in Confab or teams like ours or Paul Bird's team, every member of the team is there for competition. And it's I'll tell you where we live. We live in a square mile of egos. So it's a great place to be.
Well, there's a good chance to steer the conversation back to the racing, since you mentioned about egos and stuff. Liam has I'm sure, some interesting questions that he's been sitting on while I've been hogging all the conversation. Sorry about that. But if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I can translate for you if his accent's a bit, don't worry about that. But take it away, Liam.
Come on. Well, I thought I was never going to get the mic here. Brent, great having you on the show. You've been such a good team principal of nurturing young talent over the years. You've got Storm Stacey this year, who has really just come back into the forefront of people's attention. What's been your thinking about just bringing up young talent that maybe some people might not have put as much effort into? Why have you done that over the years?
Shall I answer it honestly, or shall I tell you a load of shit?
I want the honest one, but if you want to give us that one, on you go.
The honest truth, anybody who knows me knows where I came from and the background I came from. And, my own racing career started when a local magistrate took pity on society and banned me off the road. And motorcycling has been, throughout my life, particularly nice to me. It's a passion. It created a business away from motorcycling today, so the stuff I do away. And generally speaking, if you go into the motor car paddock, it's generally rich dads with spoilt lads. And in our paddock, it's usually talented people with no direction. And as they come through, I had a brilliant conversation with Shaky Byrne a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about an old TZ500, something that you guys might not remember. And he said to me, he just said, "Oh, Brent, I remembered when I was going to sign for your team and I got the jitters over the Pirelli tyres." And when you look at all these things with the young lads, whether it's Joe Francis or at the moment Storm Stacey or Carl Harris or JT or any of these guys, there's something in there. And I think you can't teach competition, but what you can teach is how to hone that. And then there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and if you can show them how to be confident, then hopefully the crowd love them too. And so with Storm, Storm's not just appeared on the scene, he's been around quite a while, and he's got a bit of a naughty boy reputation, but he's been through a bit of some traumas that we wouldn't wish on anybody. But last year he finished third in the Moto 3 Championship. Remember, we won the first Moto 3 Championship. We won that with Joe Francis, who we helped for a few years, and Joe's now in Superbike. And the guy we beat in 2013 was Tyrone McKenzie, and he joined us for 3 years and won the Supersport Championship with us and nearly won the Stock 600. And it's, if you look at Taz now where he is, what a brilliant thing. You walk down the paddock and go, "Hey, kid, how are you?" Or he'll run up and give Claire a kiss on the cheek. It's what a great thing. Sometimes it doesn't work. That's all there is to it. And you get a lot of pleasure out of it. There's a cost side to it, and the cost side is that if you have a great sponsor who's piling in a lot of money, they want the sexual gratification of a name who they think could win, and so that has its inherent costs. If you take on a youngster, the downside to that is nobody knows them or can believe in them, so they don't want to give you the same amount of money, and the costs are more because guess what, young kids crash, and it takes an awful lot to try to get them there. So it's great with Storm at the moment, but there's been 25 years, there's been quite a few, so it's good fun is the answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the paddock that have got to be very thankful to you for giving them the opportunity. Now, I want to know, you've been around the paddock for a long time, you've been in European Championships. Who has been the most impressive person you've ever worked with? I know there's going to be a lot of them, but who really sticks out in your mind?
What there is in when you ask about what's impressive is different parts, because to make somebody, there's a lot of things that you have to have that come together in the sandwich. And some people are really, really good at certain bits but don't have the other bit. And, you know, at the moment, in the guys that I currently have, if I look at Claudio, you know, Claudio has got all the package there, and he came here middle part of last year to learn a bit, and this year he came with all the professionalism of MotoGP and everything, with a job to do. And sadly, his head went down when he broke his shoulder. He's got everything. He's only 31 years old. He's got everything. He's just not got there. Emily Latte, we're just talking about the guys that I'm with at the moment, and then I'll talk about the others. Emily Latte, he travels from Finland to the UK every race. He has to get on 2 or 3 aeroplanes to get here. He travels on his own. He comes from the corner. I rang him up one day and I said, blah, blah, blah. He said, Brent, can I ring you back? Yeah, what's the matter? Oh, I'm just changing the wheel on my car. Oh, well, hurry up then, ring me back. He said, well, it's going to take me a while. I said, what? Change a wheel on an Audi? He said, yeah, it's minus 20. Wow. And then you've got Storm, who's a naughty boy, but brilliant. So then when I go back and look at Dean Thomas, what a rider, Australian lad, came to us, and we used to take him out in Sheffield, and if we lost him, we looked on the dance floor and all you'd see is his blonde bouncy hair, and he went into World Championships. Carl Muggeridge became world champion, and there's been Carl Harris. What an incredibly talented rider, but he got a nature like me. He was born in October. We're all of the same lunatic nature, but what an incredible talent to do what he did. And he struggled to read and write, and I'm not being horrible to the lad. So there's many, and even some that haven't made it are still friends with us, and it's funny that they might not have made it at motorcycling, but some of the things they learnt from the structure and bits, they've taken it to other things and actually become successful at whatever they've chosen. So it's kind of hard to just say it's him, he's the one, because there isn't one. And if each year we pass that book, like at the moment, Scott Redding's made me eat at least 14 straw hats, because he came here and I went, yeah, right. And obviously I don't eat steak and chips anymore, I just eat my hat. Like a lot of people, he's done what he's done incredibly. And it's Shaky Byrne, I didn't work with Shaky, and sadly I didn't. But he did the stuff he's done. So it is difficult. And there are, as we know, in all sports and all ways of life, there's just some complete knobbers. But that's how life is. So if I had to say who was the one, being as though it's 20 years since we won the European Championship, it was always a lunatic pleasure to work with Carl Harris.
He's sadly missed Carl Bomber Harris. Fantastic talent, and yeah, one that we still remember him flying over the mountain section at Cadwell Park, about 100 metres in the air. That looked like, but yeah, it must have been an absolute pleasure to work with Carl Harris. I'll hand you over to Tim, because I can see that he's ready and waiting to ask you a couple of questions as well.
Go on then.
Hi, Brent.
Hi, Tim.
How are you? So, obviously, Storm is with a chance of the championship this weekend. Have you spoken to him this week so far? How's he feeling?
Yeah, he arrived early. We were here yesterday, set up quite early, ready, and he's arrived this afternoon. He's suffering a little bit because he's woke up with the runs. I could describe it a different way, but we're on radio. All I can tell you is it doesn't smell so good round the awning at the moment. So there you go. It's not a nose run he's got, but Storm's quite interesting. He just seems to take things as they come, and he doesn't. He works well with the team. His mum leaves him to us. I mean, he's 16 years old, for Christ's sake. He's 16 years old and doing what he's doing. And also, don't forget, he's got the disadvantage of the 6 foot blooming 3 or 4 that he is. He's here to have fun, is exactly what Storm's here to do. He believes in himself and he knows what he's got to do. And I think that it's going to be fun. There's, don't forget, at the moment, Mr. Richardson has got quite a healthy lead in the championship. If Mr. Richardson fails to finish, I think he needs to finish outside the top 12. If he finishes outside the top 12 and we win, then we can be champions. But there's Corey and Ewan and these guys that are all just points apart. And they're all young lads who were full of fight and know that when they finish in the top 3, they don't get a second shot at this title. It's the title they have to try and get it now because they have to move on if they finish in the top 3. So it's going to create fantastic racing. And
you said at the start that Storm would be moving up with yourselves next year on to 1,000 stock 1,000 bikes.
Yes.
Does that mean you'll be running 2 stock 1,000 bikes next year?
At the moment, it's part and parcel of the old story of the clowns in Parliament. It is part of what we'd like to do. Yes, we won't run a 600. The Storm's bike will be for sale immediately at the end of this meeting. Anybody wants it, and he will have his first ride before the end of the month.
Right. Well, I think that's all for me. Thank you. Good luck for the weekend.
Great. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, and I suppose it's just a nice way, Brent, to end. Really, we don't want to take up too much of your time. We know that you've probably got Storm on his way to. With a few words, maybe.
No. Storm's working with Jeff and Gary and Mark.
Oh, okay.
They're making a plan. I've actually I'm leaving here. I'm going to meet a couple of sponsors that are coming down tomorrow to look round, and so I've got that to do. And then hopefully a glass of wine and B-buys ready for tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. So
maybe get Storm some soup there.
No, don't worry. Storm's not having a glass of wine. I'm having it. Yeah.
Some Imodium, I think, for Storm or whatever it is.
That's it.
Yeah, or a big Coke.
Something. Before we let you go, though, predictions for BSB, Brent. What do you reckon? Title, races?
Oh, well, to be honest, I'm surprised that Scott has carried on going for it after he was announced into World Superbikes, because he doesn't need to go for it. So therefore he wants to go for it. His teammate Brooksy, all right, he's Australian, but Brooks's work ethic and chipping away and never giving up, you could, it's going to be a three-way fight, and it's going to be other people that spoil it. But I suppose it's really difficult to choose between the two Birdie ones and Wilf's team, and in a way, And the truth is, in a way, I would love Wilf's team to win it, because Wilf's, like me, he's supported the championship for a long time, and that's Motor Rapido Ducati, by the way, and Tommy. Yeah. I would love them to win it, because they've been round, like me, at the back end of the field, the middle field, blah blah blah. They've got that wonderful, impossible mathematical success story going. So I'd love them to do it. If I'm going to pick one, I'm going to say Brooksy.
Okay, fair enough. And maybe there's a way for everyone to be happy, unlike Brexit. For someone wins maybe Scott wins the championship, and Moto Rapido, or as you call them anyway, Brent, can win at least maybe a couple of races this weekend and keep everyone.
Well, I know it is Will's team. Motor Rapido is his shop. Obviously, it's their title sponsor is Oxford Products, and Oxford Products have come along this year and done a great job together as a team. And Birdie's had 4 fantastic years with Weiser, who are leaving. So there's all sorts of reasons for all of them to have a great weekend. And yes, I think the weather is going to affect what everybody might have in the heads as a decided outcome, because Brands Hatch is Brands Hatch. Tommy is the man in horrible conditions. Brooksy is. And Scott, if he wants this title, is going to have to hang his balls out. That's all there is to it.
Interesting one, yeah, and I'll have to congratulate you again, Brent, for successfully managing to have a full-on conversation about Brexit, something that I've tried desperately to avoid on this show, especially since when Kiko was involved. And anyway, so well done on shoehorning that one in. But
don't worry, it's not something I want to talk about at all.
Nobody does. Well, some people do. Anyway, Anyway, I'll just congratulate you for the weekend. I'm sure I'll bump into you at Brands at some point. Good luck for the weekend and for 2020. Brent Gladwin.
Thank you, guys, and look forward to it, and thank you to all the fans that are going to turn out this terrible weekend.